I haven't spoken to my mother, Carol, 68, in almost 10 years. My father, Robert, died of a sudden heart attack 12 years ago, which shocked everyone, but especially my mother. The breakup with my mother occurred a few years later after a heated argument. Mom demanded that I take her 3 children after she abandoned them, and when I refused, she came to my door yelling that I was to blame for all of their issues and calling me a disgrace. My younger sister, Brenda, 35, was the issue and always has been. She had a baby at the age of 22, and I was 18 at the time, just starting my small landscaping business after working for someone else for a few years. At first it was difficult, but I had saved all of my money for it. One day, Brenda called me and asked for a large loan because she needed a car. She explained that she had a part-time job at a diner a few towns over and needed a dependable way to get there. She requested almost all of the money I had left in my emergency fund to take the baby, Lily, to doctor's appointments, so I spent a significant amount of money on a used truck and some new equipment, like a commercial-grade mower and a leaf blower. I told Brenda that I couldn't afford it, that I was barely making ends meet on my own, and I tried to be understanding by suggesting that perhaps she could find a job closer to home or ask our mother for the next day. My mother, Carol, called without saying hello and immediately demanded that I help Brenda. She said that family should always help family no matter what. I was shocked and reminded her that only a year earlier I had asked her for a small loan, maybe a small one. She became upset and said that I was being selfish, saying that I always thought I was better than her. I told her that wasn't true, that it was just a matter of timing and resources. She hung up on me. Her exact words, "You need to learn to manage your finances. Michael, we can't always be bailing you out," were precisely what she said when she told me that I needed a specialized piece of equipment, a stump grinder, to take on a bigger job that would have helped get my business off the ground. I repeated those words back to her and asked her why it was different for Brenda. My mother then began yelling at me, saying that I was being disrespectful and that Brenda's situation was urgent. I explained that I felt that Brenda needed a stump grinder to grow my business, and as the argument raged back and forth, I finally lost it and said some harsh things. I told her that she always helped Brenda, no matter how careless she was, and that she was enabling her, saying that if everyone kept helping Brenda, she would never learn to stand on her own 2 feet. I accused her of playing favorites, and my mother hung up on me. We didn't talk for 10 years after that. I would see her at weddings, funerals, and family get-togethers, but we would avoid each other. It was awkward, but I felt like I had said what needed to be said. Brenda has always been, to put it plainly, a mess. She's had a series of bad relationships, never held down a job for long, and constantly switched between low-paying jobs. Despite her limited income after my father passed away, my mother always seemed to find a way to give Brenda money or help her with child care. About 2 weeks ago, she had 2 more children, both boys, Mark, 7M, and Sam, 4M, each of whom had a different father. Neither of those fathers is shown in the picture at all. They never were. Brenda has always relied on our mother for support, and occasionally when they were feeling giving to the kids' fathers' families. The phone rang, and it was my mother. It was the first time we had spoken since our argument, and her voice sounded strained and different. She didn't waste any time on small talk when she informed me that Brenda had vanished. She had left the kids with my mother, claiming to be running a routine errand, picking up some milk and diapers, but she never returned. A few hours later, my mother received a text message from a brief and harsh message from Brenda stating that she was leaving because she could no longer handle being a mother and that she knew the children would be better off with my mother. She blocked my mother's number right away after sending it, and when my mother tried to call back, it went straight to voicemail. She sounded panicked and told me that she was overwhelmed by caring for 3 young children, especially with their various needs as she ages. She also stated that although she has some savings and a small retirement fund that she and my father had set aside, raising 3 children over the long term would completely deplete her, leaving her unable to cover her living expenses, let alone the cost of raising them. Finally, she asked me the question I'd been dreading. Could I take the kids and not just make financial contributions, but I live with my girlfriend, Sarah, 32, full-time. We have been together for 3 years and are pleased. We plan to get married next year and have discussed starting a family someday, but we weren't planning on doing so for a few more years. We have a 2-bedroom apartment in the city, which is comfortable for the 2 of us and has plenty of space, but it would be very crowded with 3 more people, especially young, active children. I told my mother I couldn't. In addition to telling her that Sarah and I weren't ready to have children and that it wasn't something we had planned for or were ready for, I also somewhat icily pointed out that my mother has a big house in the suburbs where I grew up. It has 4 bedrooms and is a little dated, but it's roomy, and Brenda's old room is still empty just as she left it. I said I could understand if she wanted some financial aid, but I asked for it and she flatly refused. My mother then began to yell at me once more, just like she had done on the phone 10 years prior. She brought up our argument and claimed that I was still harboring resentment and that I was using this as a way to get even with her. She also claimed that I was leaving my family, just like Brenda had, and that we helped each other out. She went on to say that she wouldn't even ask for help if the circumstances were reversed. I told her that she was correct and that my only option would be to call Child Protective Services. I hung up. Since then, my mother has been phoning my aunts, uncles, siblings, and cousins to tell them that I won't help. I've also received multiple calls and texts from family members I haven't spoken to in years, telling me that I need to take charge of my life. I'm being heartless that I'm turning my back on my flesh and blood. AITA, Update 1. Okay, I've read through some of the comments, and I want to clarify a few things. Many people seem to be asking similar questions, first about my relationship with Brenda. Like I said in the original post, we were never close even when we were kids. She was always getting into trouble, skipping school, sneaking out, and arguing with our parents. I was the opposite. I was the we didn't share any hobbies or interests. But she was a good kid who stayed out of the way, got good grades, and followed instructions. I remember trying to teach her how to play chess once, thinking it would be a fun way to bond, but after 5 minutes she became bored and began throwing the chess pieces around the room. That was pretty much the end of our relationship, and I haven't seen her or the kids in years. Many people are asking why my mother hasn't called the police regarding Brenda's disappearance, but she refuses, claiming she would rather not get Brenda into trouble. I stopped sending Christmas cards with gift cards inside for the kids for a couple of years after the big fight, thinking it was a way to stay somewhat connected. I never received a thank you, not even a text message. I think she's in denial because, like Brenda, she's probably just overwhelmed and will return when she's ready. I told her over the phone that Brenda might be in danger and that something bad might have happened to her, but my mother dismissed it, saying that Brenda was an adult and could take care of herself. Third, and this is a big one, I did call Child Protective Services myself after a lengthy conversation with Sarah. Disappearance and the fact that the children were with my mother. I didn't mention my refusal to take them in. I just gave them the details, including Brenda's name, the children's names and ages, my mother's address, and the date Brenda vanished. They said they would conduct a welfare check to ensure the children were safe and receiving proper care, but I haven't heard anything from them since Sarah and I have discussed this extensively. It has been extremely stressful for both of us, been helpful. She acknowledges that given our current living situation and our plans, taking in the kids isn't practical for us at this time. She did offer that we could provide some limited financial assistance, perhaps setting up a monthly payment to help with groceries or the kids' clothes or something similar, but that's the most we feel we can do. I blocked my mother's number and the numbers of all the relatives who were contacting me via text and phone. Since my last update, things have gotten worse. My mother unexpectedly showed up at my apartment building today, so I was outside doing some yard work. There are only 6 apartments in the building, so I've taken on the duty of keeping the landscaping looking nice. I was pruning the bushes along the walkway to the front door in an attempt to get them to I thought it was someone visiting one of the other tenants, but when a car pulled up to the curb, I didn't recognize it at first. It wasn't my mother's old sedan. Instead, it was a newer model, a small SUV, which I assumed was a rental. When I saw my mother get out of the driver's seat, my initial reaction was to run. I started walking quickly towards the building's front door in the hopes of getting inside and locking it before she could get to me. She called my name. Michael stopped right there, and we needed to talk. Her voice was sharp and loud, similar to when I was a child and had done something wrong. I stopped at the door, put my hand on the doorknob, and turned to face her. I didn't say anything, just looked at her. I told her as flatly as I could that I wasn't going to change my mind about taking the kids and that she should just go home because this wouldn't get anything done. Even acknowledged my remarks regarding the children, but instead began discussing our relationship and how things had been between us ever since my father passed away. She acknowledged that she hadn't always been the best mother to me, that she had favored Brenda, that she had been too harsh on me, and that she had been too forgiving of my sister. She claimed to have been afraid when my dad informed her that she was pregnant a second time, afraid of the fines, and that I was in an accident. Went on to say that having a second child had entirely ruined their plans for the future. Before I was born, they had a whole idea of how their lives would be. My dad, a talented carpenter who worked at a nearby factory, had dreamed of leaving his job to start his own woodworking business, creating custom cabinets and furniture. He had even begun creating plans for a workshop he wanted to construct in their home's basement. Stated that she had always wished to be a stay-at-home mother to raise a large garden, raise chickens, and can her vegetables, but when she unexpectedly became pregnant with me, They realized that their dream was financially unattainable because a new baby meant another mouth to feed, another bedroom needed in the house, and less money coming in if my dad quit his stable job. New businesses, particularly woodworking, take time to become profitable, so he couldn't handle that. They put their plans on hold because of the risk of having a second child. My dad continued to work long hours at a job he hated at the factory, and instead of staying at home, he took on part-time jobs cleaning houses and doing other jobs to help make ends meet. She said they both felt trapped and resentful, and the hardest part was hearing that they both unconsciously began to resent me for it because I was still a baby. She apologized, saying I apologized for not being the mother I needed and for not providing me with the love and support I deserved. However, she said that the feeling was there, which is why she had always been harder on me and why she always seemed to favor Brenda. Brenda represented the life they had planned and the life they believed they were going to have, while I represented the life they ended up with and the life they felt they had been forced into. Carried this guilt with her for years, and it had only gotten worse after my father passed away. I was so shocked by everything that I was unable to speak. It was so much to process that I had to sit down on the steps leading up to the building entrance, my legs feeling weak. I had always suspected in my heart that my parents had preferred Brenda as their child, and the age difference between us always seemed significant after that. After sitting in silence for a few minutes, trying to take in everything, I finally spoke and told her that I needed time to think about everything she had said. I asked her to leave and she didn't argue. Instead, she simply nodded and walked back to the car. I went straight inside my apartment and told Sarah everything, and later that day, I texted my mother. "Mom, thank you for coming by today and talking to me. I appreciate you explaining things and being honest about why you treated me the way you did. I understand you had your reasons, but it doesn't change the fact that I didn't want to talk to Sarah over the phone or in person again, so I needed to put my thoughts down in writing to make sure I said exactly what I wanted to say. I know you're in a difficult situation with Brenda's kids right now, and I really feel bad for you, but I still can't take them in. I'm not ready for that kind of responsibility, and it wouldn't be fair to them or Sarah and me. What happened doesn't change the fact that I grew up feeling like I was a burden, like I wasn't good enough, and that I wasn't loved as much as Brenda. Update 4. It's been a week since I texted my mother, and she hasn't attempted to call, text, or visit my apartment again. I honestly thought she would this evening, so Sarah and I were cleaning up after dinner. I need some time to process everything you told me today. There's a lot to unpack. Please don't contact me again for a while. I'll get in touch when and if I'm ready. I had just finished loading the dishwasher and putting the leftovers in the fridge when there was a loud, insistent knock on the door. It was my mother, and she looked furious. Without waiting for me to say anything, she began talking, her voice raised and shaking. I told her, trying not to lose my cool, that I wasn't going to talk to her, reminding her of the text message I had sent asking for space and saying I would get in touch when I was ready. My mother claimed that after reading the text message several times and considering it for the entire week, she concluded that I was being utterly irrational. She apologized and said that she had explained everything, and that should be sufficient. She accused me of being self-centered and only considering my feelings, and said that my father had worked his fingers to the bone at a job he detested, which ultimately contributed to his early death. Her voice was dripping with sarcasm as she asked me what my excuse was. What possible reason could I have for refusing to help my own family? My mother persisted in saying that I owed them because I had come along and ruined their plans, and that I owed her for all the sacrifices they had made. She then brought up Brenda again, saying that at least she had a reason for leaving her children, saying that she was overwhelmed and struggling. I tried to interrupt her to tell her that she was being unfair by not listening to me, but she just talked over me, her voice growing louder and louder until I finally snapped that she wasn't going to respect my foolish request for space and that she was here to get this sorted out once and for all. She had always been that way, even as a child. I told her that she was the one being ridiculous and that her apology didn't make up for years of emotional pain and neglect. I told her that I didn't know her and that she had made her own decisions while I was making mine. I said that if she had complied with my request for space and given me time to think things through, perhaps we could have eventually had a calm and reasonable conversation, but that she had ruined any likelihood of that occurring by coming here and attacking me. I reminded her that I had been extremely courteous and that she had no right to tell me how I should feel or react. I told her that I would take my time if I needed it, and that she couldn't make me do anything I would rather not do. I asked her to leave my building or I would call the police. She stood there for a while, staring at me with her mouth open, before she began to curse at me and call me names. Unappreciative, a bad son, and a disgrace to the family, he eventually turned and left, returning to the car she had arrived in. I slammed the door and leaned against it. Sarah had been watching the entire incident from the hallway behind me, but she had remained silent. After I had calmed down a little, Sarah spoke, saying she was relieved that I had defended myself and that I hadn't allowed my mother to bully me. She claimed to have suspected since the moment my mother when first appeared. She apologized and claimed that it was all a ploy. She claimed that my mother had realized that I was her only hope for finding someone to watch the kids since Brenda had left, and that when I didn't agree right away when I asked for time, she had become irate and started making accusations. Sarah claimed that we had made the right choice and that we couldn't allow my mother's problems to become our problems. She said it was sad, the fallout from the fight with my mother. A few days after the fight, I got a call from my mother's lawyer, who told me that my mother had decided to revise her will. Update 5. It's been months since the last update since that terrible confrontation with my mother. I haven't checked this Reddit account in a long time, but the time has been busy in a good way. I told the lawyer honestly that I didn't care, that if my mother believed that removing me from her would hurt me, she was sadly mistaken because I'd never expected anything from her, and I certainly didn't need her money. She wrote me out completely. Her house, her savings, and anything valuable she owned would go to Brenda and Brenda's children. I haven't heard from my mother directly since that night at my apartment. However, I have ignored and blocked my aunt and a few other relatives who appear to be supporting my mother after seeing vague, passive-aggressive posts on social media from my aunt, my mother's sister, about how some people abandon their families and don't appreciate the sacrifices made for them. A few weeks ago, I received another unexpected phone call, this time from a police officer in a town about 2 hours away from where I live. Said that they had found Brenda, who had been living there and working at a small diner under a slightly different name. The officer said that Brenda had agreed to return and take custody of her children and that she had apologized to my mother, explaining that she had been experiencing a serious emotional crisis and had needed to get away to clear her head. Now that she was living with my mother and the children in the family home, I wasn't sure what to do. Sarah and I are doing well, and we are currently working on our wedding plans, which are set for next spring. We have reserved a venue, a tiny vineyard just outside of the city, and selected the caterer and photographer, among other details. It has been a lot of effort, but it's been thrilling as well.